Hi, it's Sam here for SampleLibraryReview.com, and today we're going to be looking at Spitfire Audio Aperture Cassette Symphony. If you've ever wondered what a full orchestra sampled on a cassette tape and then played back in a church might sound like, well, wonder no longer, as Spitfire Audio have done just that and wrapped it all up in a bespoke plugin for the fourth iteration of their innovative Aperture product line. Welcome to the dusty and crusty world of Aperture Cassette Symphony. A few years ago, Spitfire Audio announced a unique Black Friday freebie above a threshold spend called Aperture. The concept was an intriguing one whereby the mod wheel controlled the size of the sample set, growing from something small and often solo to a huge and epic apex. This is achieved by adding a combination of players, microphones and ambience as you ride up CC1. For 2022, the camera aperture idea remained the same, but the focus shifted to an orchestra deeply sampled on a cassette tape and then replayed via a bewildering array of Walkmans, cables, speakers and custom performance controllers into a large hall studio in Glasgow to be captured by a range of microphones. Spitfire are known not just for exemplary workhorse orchestral libraries, but also for their experimental nature in sampling, and Aperture Cassette Symphony is arguably the most radical project yet and hugely ambitious. But is it merely an expensive sales gimmick, or can it stand up in its own right as a usable and inspiring composing tool? The library is now available to buy, just like any of the regular products. Now is the ideal time for us to take a closer look. Cassette Symphony consists of 24 gigabytes of samples with over 800 tapes of organic orchestral material. There are 200 custom cassette players, the Walkman, organised and played back in classic orchestral positioning. There are 10 custom-made performance controllers, 15 speakers were involved, and there are 7 sections. We've got high strings, low strings, high woods, low woods, high brass, low brass and percussion, all recorded with a full orchestral microphone setup. It was recorded in a converted church, and there's a bespoke plugin for VST, AU and AAX. It's NKS compatible and sells for £199 including sales tax. The default patch when loading Cassette Symphony is the high winds, which are predominantly flutes, and they sound like this. As you can see, this fader, which is a CC1, controls the aperture. It goes from something quite minimal and intimate and all the way up to something more epic as more players and more mics and a bigger hall is introduced. That's reflected with this icon here. You can see it opening and closing as it goes up and down. Now, sustained monos is an instrument articulation that emulates a legato. Of course, they can't properly record a legato because we're essentially recording machines, but they've done a really good job with quite a strong portamento feel. That's a really unique type of sound. I like it. And it's worth pointing out that the velocity controls the dynamics, even on the longs. We're used to that with the shorts, but of course, with longs, when we'd normally be using the CC1 for your dynamics, it's not possible because the aperture is dealing with CC1. So instead, it's under the fingers. It takes a bit of getting used to if you're used to using your CC1 for all your dynamics, but it does enable an extra layer of intensity to be dialed in with under the keys and this, and in fact using the expression as well on CC11. That's going to be at 100% for most of this review, I would say, but again, that acts like a bit like a volume controller essentially. We've got tape loop, which is a mangled, sun-baked tape full of all the artifacts and degradation you might expect. love that, full of weird little pitch fluctuations and glitches. Reels is very much akin to the Spitfire Evos, where you've got this slow swelling sound coming in and out, and it works best as you play the keys arpeggio fashion, but don't play them too close to each other, so you get more of the ebb and flow and these waves of sound. Scattered is similar to reels, but it's basically quicker. So it's coming in and out quicker and a bit more sparse, especially down here. And then as we add this, you'll hear the number of swells increase. Now we've got the hairpins here, which is basically a long, slow swell up and then out again. That's really wonderfully done. And you can also hear there the huge change in sound that the Aperture gives you from something that's really intimate and minimal, with maybe a single player, there to a massive symphony at the top. Staccatos. And finally, another standard short, staccatos. Really pretty nimble actually, and I love hearing it with fully wet, if you like, so with all the holes and the mics all open there. If we want to go even deeper, we can use this selector here and we can put different effects on. They're also replicated here for the effects. We've got a filter, we've got tightness, especially for the shorts, that's an important one. Release, that's more for your longs. Reverb and noise as well, which is that kind of thing. Just the tape, I imagine it's a tape noise or room noise. And then the portamento effect, I think that applies more for the sustain there as well. So we can actually increase that if we wanted real wildness. So to something a lot more straight. What I was talking about before I went off on a complete tangent was the reverb. So we can dial in extra reverb, and that can be tied to any CC you would like as well. And you just select these and then you can have that designated to the big knob in the middle. That's a pretty nice standard external reverb. By default, I think it's about 10% on each patch. Okay, so that covers all the articulations, and these are replicated for all the instruments in the set as well. A quick tour of the interface. We've got expression, we've got mod wheel there. We've been through this. And some preferences down here relating to the key switch triggers and round robins. For example, you can select the number of round robins you would like on that little pull down there. This is a handy little thing to know about, which enables you to build your own patch. So we can actually take some of these off if you want it. It's probably the most common way of using this is to manage RAM, I would say. So say we only wanted to, we're only going to use the reels. We simply delete these articulations. You say, we're starting with 660, but we're going to come right down there as soon as I save it. Save, and then we're 179 megabytes there, and only, of course, the reels. But you can also build your own custom patches if you like as well, using this method. Though it looks like limited to the high woodwinds. You can't mix high woodwinds and brass, for example. And you get a little play function here, which enables you to hear what it sounds like. To add it, it's just a plus sign, and then a nice little info panel here, which might help, especially for the tape loops and reels if you forget exactly what they're doing. Okay, we'll have a quick play on some of the other ones. We've got a traditional orchestra sample here, basically. So I've got the woodwinds there. We've got the low winds. I'll play a little bit on that. Let's take my keyboard down. I'm on a little keyboard, so I've got to hit my little octave icon. Nice sustains. And the reels. Fabulous stuff. Now, I'm not going to play every articulation going, just a select few, just give you an idea. They go pretty damn low and pretty big sounded as well. Now, each of these also has a worn variety as well. So if we go back to the high winds here, basically this is the tape that's even more degraded, even more old and crusty. I'll play the sustains here. There's way more pitch fluctuations going on, a lot more saturation, etc. Hairpins on that one. If you want to be super obvious about using the tape effect, the worn ones are the ones to go for. And we've got strings, low strings here. And that's just a massive sound, really full and low at the bottom there, to the point of actually, if you play too fast, it gets a little bit muddy. We'll bring it down to here, we can hear it a bit more clearly. Excellent stuff. High strings. Let's start with scattered up here. There really is such a vast difference between the bottom and top of there. And when you combine that with the fact we can also use the expression, the amount of playability in this instrument is really quite exciting. Hairpins. The hairpins also relate to the key velocity as well, so you can have a hairpin that is all at a lower intensity, and you can also, by pressing harder, get the most extreme hairpin going. And I like to also fade up the aperture as the hairpin swells to accentuate the effect even more. I'll show you what that sounds like. I really like the ability to do that. Brilliant. And we've got the same for the high strings. We've got one as well. I'll just give you a couple of examples of this. Otherwise, this will take quite a while going through every single articulation. Here we've got tape loop. It's pretty much this is as worn as you can get, because a tape loop is the affected version, and we've also on warm, which is super degraded tape. Things start to get pretty gnarly. We're on the ones. Okay, the brass, low brass. Let's start with the stacks. And scattered. Now for me, the brass works better on these longer articulations. Now, I'll play the sustains, which are nice, but I think it really shines on these more experimental stuff. and high brass standard. And at the lower velocities, and also with this down there, you get a lovely gentle choral effect, which I like. Now I'll have a play with the reels. Great stuff. And have a little go on low brass ones. That takes us through three of the 4 sections. The last thing is the percussion. This is not as expansive as the other 3 sections, but what's there is good. Now we've got it divided into 2 octaves for octave playing. Bring this down, you can really hear the aperture at work. And full whack. We're going from that single drum all the way down there to an epic army of drums. Snares on F. Higher snare on G. Toms on the E there. Powerful stuff. Got cymbals here. I love the ability on the cymbals, and you'll hear the gong in a second, to be able to go from that lowest dynamic on the CC1 all the way to the biggest in the tail of the hit. It's really effective. Of course, we can go reverse as well, so we'll kind of start off big, then go small. That's a pretty unique type of sound. Timpanis. The timpanis do use the black keys because they're all tuned. We'll just fade this in. I love the percussion on this, especially this kit, and I just wish they'd have done a few more actually, because a few more toms and maybe some more ethnic taiko drums sampled the same way would have been really great. Something that applies to the entire library that I'd love to see in an update is a way of auto gain compensating for the increase in volume when we open the aperture up, so we're able to get all the extra girth of the extra players and the bigger room sound, but without the volume increase. Of course, it's possible using the expression to do this manually, but an automatic option to tame CC1's volume would be really welcome. I questioned at the start of the review whether Aperture Cassette Symphony might be more of a gimmick created for the purpose of promoting the Spitfire Audio Black Friday sale. After some time using it, I think it's fair to say that although it has somewhat of a novelty element to it, it does have significant depth and usability. Moreover, it's almost as if Spitfire have created the Mellotron 2.0, as it shares much of the timbre of the much revered vintage keyboard sampler. But then it takes it much further. Like its Aperture brethren, it certainly won't be an everyday library, and at full price it may put it more in the range of a professional composer with the resources to acquire more niche sample libraries. Personally, I've struggled a little bit to know where to place it in my templates. Nothing like a traditional orchestral sample set, nor is it truly hybrid as it lacks any kind of synthetic side. These are not orchestral samples recorded onto studio tape via expensive studios. This is crusty consumer cassette tape with a far more affected and lo-fi sound. With that in mind, it's likely not going to be massively useful for any traditional orchestral cues. However, it's got plenty of scope to help craft pads, drones, melodies and rhythms that have that elusive, familiar yet not feel. It can blend well with both organic and more synthy compositions. It really pays off to dig around in there, as certain sections do work better than others once resampled through 200 cassette players. In particular, the high woodwinds really shine on every patch with that classic Mellotron flute sound reinvented for modern workflows. Other sections like the low brass are more suited for evolving pads using the reels and scattered articulations. The percussion is the only real weak area here. Whilst what is there sounds good, there is simply not a plentiful enough range. If you got Aperture Cassette Symphony for free during Black Friday, it's a superb bonus for sure. Whether it's for you outside of the offer, at a couple of £100 will have much more to do with your own musical voice and the styles you mostly work in. Regardless, as an example of how to keep pushing boundaries in the art form of sampling, Spitfire have done it again, and for that alone, hats off to them. Please like, share and subscribe, and let us know in the comments below what you thought of Aperture Cassette Symphony. Pop over to our website, samplelibraryreview.com, for more reviews like this, and also the weekly deal compressor, which has a roundup of all the best offers every single week.